What's up? Welcome to Forgotten Video Store. It's kind of a tribute to a simpler time of renting videos. I'm David Murto. I'm your host. I'd like to apologize right off the bat because my voice is a little weaker than usual. I'm just getting over some sort of virus. On this show, I like to talk about movies that aren't available to stream anywhere and movies that the listener has never seen. And if a listener has seen one of the movies I cover and can prove that you saw it before I talked about it on the podcast, like with a sworn deposition or something, then you'll win a fabulous prize, which is a $25 gift card to Fry's Electronics. And my guest this time is Jihan Batuman. So, thank you so much for coming, making time for me. Jihan, what's your whole deal?
Well, I can help you with those sworn depositions because I used to be a lawyer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but don't hold it against me. I have burned out on it. And nowadays, I am on the traditional failed lawyer trajectory. I do a lot of stand-up comedy.
Awesome.
And, if you're ever in Milwaukee, you can come check me out sometime.
So this is like a movie podcast. What kind of movies are you into?
I've got a pretty eclectic range, but you know, I love a lot of the classics. I love crime movies. Dark comedy is also my jam.
How about like Coen Brothers
for the B movies?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, Coen Brothers are great. Yeah.
Just because it's like dark comedy and crime usually in those movies.
Yeah, they always hit the sweet spot. I have a love-hate relationship with a couple of their movies, but for the most part, they usually get it right.
Well, which ones do you have a love-hate relationship with?
I'm not a big No Country for Old Men fan.
You're kidding me. That one's so good. Less funny than the others.
I know. It's less funny, and it's objectively really good. It just doesn't quite do it for me.
Fair enough. Okay, so we're breaking format a little bit this time because Jihan didn't actually come with me to the Forgotten Video Store. He's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, like he said. So what we did was I wore a GoPro and live streamed and had like a little earpiece and kind of showed him around the video store and let him pick out whatever we wanted. He picks out a video. I took it home. We watched it together. Well, I watched it alone on my couch with the GoPro on. He watched it with his, computer or whatever he was streaming it through. And at one point, I forgot that I was doing this, and I went to the bathroom, and Jihan saw everything.
Yeah.
And then, but we watched the rest of the movie, and now we're here. So you picked out something called Andy Gump, and I want to be very clear about this. This movie has nothing to do with the real Andy Gump, which is a wonderful portable restroom supplier based in Southern California here. You see him all over the place. Andy Gump, the porta potties. This movie is not related to that company in any sense. But Andy Gump, the movie, was directed by Ronald F. Maxwell, who usually specializes in making slavery apologist movies like Gettysburg, Gods and Generals, and Copperhead. And it stars Chad Michael Murray as the titular Andy Gump. Now, Jihan, why did you pick out this movie?
I partially picked it out because I figured if I was going to live vicariously through you and your GoPro, we should go for something that has a lot of pedigree, because for all of the slavery apologia, I have to admit that Maxwell's made a couple of movies I've enjoyed. To be honest with you, I did think it was about the toilet emperor Andy Gump.
Yeah, it would be nice to know more about that guy.
Yeah, hopefully they make another Andy Gump movie about that Andy Gump someday.
God willing.
Gods and Generals willing.
There it is. So let's get into it a little bit. This was from 2024, and Chad Michael Murray is maybe in his 40s, but it's one of these like movies where the actor plays the character at all ages, and they just kind of change his hair for the different ages.
Yeah, it works out well when he's older, but then you have to sort of suspend your disbelief for the younger scenes.
Mm-hmm. So the movie opens up, and we see Chad Michael Murray as Andy Gump, and he's standing in line, kind of a long line, for a portable John. And there's like a, middle-aged woman beside him. He has a edible arrangement, right? The fruit that's like shaped like all the flowers and stuff.
Yeah, he's got the huge basket in his hands waiting in line for the toilet.
And is like, why does he need that for the toilet? It's not immediately clear, but he's talking to the woman beside him. He's like, I love an edible arrangement. My mom always said life is like an edible arrangement. It's really expensive and it's not as good as you thought it was going to be. And you're like, oh yeah, that is kind of true. And he's like, kind of reminds me of growing up in the Brentwood neighborhood of Los Angeles. And then you kind of get into like a flashback. Okay, the waiting in line thing is like a frame narrative that's going to deposit us at different episodes in this guy's life. That's kind of a fun structure. I like that kind of stuff. So you get to see Chad Michael Murray as Andy Gump, but he's like a little kid version. So he's got like overalls and like a spinny cap on.
Right, very floppy wig.
So he's like a little boy, and he's like just playing, like skipping rope in front of his house, and he hears a commotion next door, and he's like, "Oh, I'll check this out." It must have been a cold night or something. He's wearing gloves. He goes next door, finds a couple dead bodies, and is like, some dead bodies, and starts touching around with the glove, and he's like, ooh, yucky, sticky. He takes off the glove, leaves it there. That's kind of the end of the sequence, but you hear in the narration, like as if Andy Gump is telling the woman next to him, oh, and that glove was on TV, and the man said, the glove don't fit, you must have quit. And of course his hand didn't fit my little boy glove. And you're like, okay, so this is interesting. So this is like a little simple-minded Southern. Oh, I didn't get why he had like a deep South accent when he grew up in Brentwood. That didn't make a lot of sense to me.
No, I think they were just trying to make him more relatable to the audience. That was just, typical Hollywood trying to twist history a little bit to make it more palatable for moviegoers.
That's a good way of putting it. This is kind of a historical revisionism movie.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and that's part of why I picked it too, because I'm a child of the 90s, and I was curious to see how they would, my own upbringing in life as a non-Californian who then moved to California. I just wanted to see, it felt like it'd be a very relatable subject.
And did you find it relatable?
Yeah, other than the Southern accent, it was pretty relatable. And I think, to start off the framing narrative with him waiting in line to use the toilet is especially relatable because whomst amongst us has not had to wait in a long line for a porta potty at a concert or some other event. So Andy Gump, he actually ends up going to the opposite end of the country. He marches to D.C. as part of Louis Farrakhan's Million Man March.
Right.
Although I don't think Andy knew it was Louis Farrakhan leading the Million Man March.
No, he seemed to think it was just a general man march. Not
right, just a march for the fellas.
Right, not specific to the Nation of Islam, really. He just wanted to go for a walk, seemed like.
There's an epidemic of male loneliness, and it's important to develop male friendships. So I can see why he did it, even though he was a little misinformed.
He got it all the way to Washington, D.C., and he seemed to not really have a strategy for getting home, so he just kind of stayed there. And he got a job at a dry cleaner's. And there's a wonderful sequence where a woman comes in with a blue dress with a stain on it and says, do you think you could get this stain off? And he's like, oh, we can get any stain off. So then it's a rush job, and like the boss is like, God damn it, Gump, you got to get that stain off of that dress. And he's like, oh, I'll get the stain off. But then he hears My Heart Will Go On, the theme song from Titanic, comes on the radio. He's real moved by it, and that kind of distracts him. And then the nice woman comes in again and says, oh, do you have that blue dress? He's too embarrassed to say he forgot to clean it, and so he left the stain on there. And then he's like the voiceover telling the story to the old woman, or middle-aged woman, I shouldn't say she's an old woman, but beside him is like, and that dress made it on the TV too. And they have the stock footage of like Ken Starr. It's like we did the DNA test, and it was President Clinton's semen. Yeah, so that sets up the pattern, kind of like this is just a regular American guy who's gonna play a part in all these great American moments.
Yeah, it's aspirational, really, because all of us regular folks, we can only hope to have an impact on the world around us. And here Andy Gump, just a simple dry cleaner employee, manages to be a part of the national discourse. But he doesn't stay in D.C. for long. He then he ends up moving south.
Right, because he sees like a truck with like orange trees on it, and it's like Florida Zone or something, and he's like, duh, I like oranges, and this kind of stuff. He finds his way down to Florida, and this is kind of his first taste of the restroom business. He gets a job as a janitor in a government building, and he is assigned to clean the bathrooms. And he loves it. He can't get enough of cleaning these bathrooms.
Yeah, he's like a duck to water. I feel like he finally gets to find his calling, so to speak.
he's there late one night in November, and they get a big delivery in a truck, and he's like, oh, I'll take that delivery. He thinks it's the paper towels for the bathroom, and there's like a big spill in this bathroom. He's like, I'll take all these paper towels, clean up this mess.
Yeah, he's proactive.
Yeah, so he cleans up this mess, and then the boss man comes through, and he's like, God damn it, Gump. Those weren't paper towels. Those were ballots that just came in from all the small villages and hamlets of Florida with all the election ballots. And those were bound to heavily favor the Republican candidate, George W. Bush. And so what this movie, I guess, is positing is that George W. Bush would have won the election fair and square had Gump not destroyed these ballots. And so it's okay the way things went, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's an important reminder of the integrity of elections because, you know, I'm a liberal guy and I have my own doubts about the 2000 election recounts, but I think ultimately what happened and we have to make our peace with it. And I think the movie really wants to convey how important it is to make peace with the world around you.
That's right. It's got good messages in that way. You know, he's down there in Florida. He starts rising up the ranks of the janitorial bathroom cleaning business.
Yeah, they recognize his excellence.
Yeah, he buys his own truck and he's driving around and there's like bathroom supplies in the back of the truck. And one day he's passing by a car and there's some kind of Middle Eastern looking gentleman. Their car broke down and he's like, "Huh, can I give you a lift?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're late for our flight school appointments." And he's like, "Well, I can get you there." And he takes them. And then the voiceover, he's telling the middle-aged woman, and those gentlemen were on TV too. And so you're kind of realizing Andy Gump's whole thing, his only frame of reference is if something is on TV, that means it's good.
Yeah, TV is God. TV is home for him. It's a source of comfort stripped of context. In a way, it's like a meta-analysis of the impact of TV on American society.
You explaining this movie is a lot more thoughtful than I thought it was when we were watching it.
Yeah, there's always layers to things, much like we see in the way he approaches his work. You know, the way he thinks about being a janitor. It's not like you're going in there and cleaning. He always approaches it like this is where people come during their work hours as a place of comfort, of sanctuary.
Yeah.
And he sees things in ways that other people wouldn't think about them. That's part of his charm.
Yeah, you'll never look at the world the same way again after you've seen it through the eyes of Andy Gump.
Yeah, once he sees his friends from Florida on TV, I think that it stirs some sense of patriotism in him, and he decides to take his talents to the U.S. military. Yeah,
so he gets shipped off to Iraq, and that's an interesting sequence because he kind of meets a like-minded soul over there. He meets this friend named John, and they get put on a duty together. And talk about duty, they both have to go to the bathroom, but of course, like, this is Andy Gump's nightmare. He needs to go to the bathroom. There's no bathroom to be found.
He's accustomed to his life as a custodian, having access to all sorts of bathrooms, toilets. And now he finds himself in the middle of the desert with his buddy John, and they're stuck in a position where they have to just dig their own holes to go to the bathroom. So it's like a jarring experience for him out in the desert. A man who's never left the country before suddenly has to find a new way to create a bathroom for himself.
There's this moment where John is like, "Oh, thank God, it's a solid stinker." He calls them stinkers, I think.
Yeah, it's his cute way of saying it.
Thank God it's a solid stinker, because, sometimes you get messy water diarrhea stinkers, you get little pellet stinkers, you get the long snake stinkers, you get the big old pile stinkers.
You get the spicy stinkers.
Yeah, you get the cornfield stinkers. That's about it. And so they're talking about all the different stinkers you can get. And John says, it'd be nice if there was a bathroom that could go anywhere with you. This strikes a chord with Andy Gump. And they get to talking. And they're gonna go into business together once they get back to the United States. They're going to start a business where the bathroom can move. It can go anywhere you need it. And what they're describing is a porta potty, a portable toilet,
In this universe, it's pretty clear at this point that porta potties don't exist as we know them.
Right.
So John and Andy, as they're digging holes in the sand to deposit their own stinkers, they start pondering the idea of how beautiful it would be to be able to create your own bathroom, to have a bathroom come to you if you need one, rather than having to seek out a toilet.
You can call this business that they're going to create, and they will bring a bathroom to you. I don't know why I'm explaining what a porta potty is, because people in our universe know what it is. So, but in the world of this movie, this is a novel idea they're coming up with. Or maybe they're just so fucking stupid that they don't realize this has been a thing for years.
Yeah, they are pretty stupid, but it's kind of beautiful to see them, like the delight that they find in discussing this idea. And there's also that really cute scene where they're going back and forth about names for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is this a portable toilet or a nomad shitter? Things of this nature. Yeah. They throw all sorts of names back and forth, and you can really see the deepening friendship between these guys.
Right. But then there's a shocking sequence where there's a big explosion, and they're caught in the middle. They're caught literally with their pants down in the middle of a firefight, and there's like trucks going through and stuff. So this convoy of Jeeps is coming through, and this one Jeep pulls up. It runs right over John, and his whole head gets squashed like a watermelon at a Gallagher show. But then the car swerves to the side, stops right next to Andy Gump, and the driver opens the door and he comes out, and wouldn't you know it, it's Saddam Hussein himself.
The big dog. Yeah, and Jesus. And Andy, the sweet man that he is, he's out of it from the explosions, and he doesn't realize that the same Jeep that ran over his friend is just pulled over next to him. But Saddam hops out. He approaches Andy and asks him for a little favor.
Mm-hmm. So the American troops are closing in, and Saddam goes up to Andy and he's like, "My friend, will you get rid of these for me?" The Jeep is like full of something, and he like pulls back the tarp, and it's just a bunch of boxes that are labeled WMD. So he's like, "Will you get rid of that?" And Gump is like, "Oh yeah, I can take care of those for you," and he's like destroys them before the American military gets them. So I guess what this movie is positing is that the Iraq War was in fact justified, that there were WMDs there. It's just that Andy Gump had destroyed them before they were found.
Right, he was inadvertently part of a cover-up, and it was fitting that Saddam came across him at that point because Andy and John had just been digging a bunch of toilet holes, and he threw all of the remains of the WMDs in those holes. So in his mind, he's just still doing his custodial duties.
Yeah, getting rid of stinkers.
The dirty bombs, if you will.
And he says, "And that man was on TV too," and you get the stock footage of Saddam's execution, his hanging, which was
rest in power.
Did you watch that when it happened?
I did, yeah.
I couldn't believe they put that on TV.
No, that was out of pocket. That felt a little like overkill, yeah.
And I think they knew that they shouldn't put it on TV, but it was like, I guess this is important.
Well, people need closure, and since they didn't find the WMDs, I feel like they needed to provide something so we could all move on, and that's what they ended up going with.
So Andy's tour of duty's up. He comes back to the United States, and true to his word to John, he starts that business, and the name he settles on is Porta John, in tribute to his friend. But it's Andy Gump Porta John.
Yeah, because when they're talking about going into business together, it's a sign of how strong their friendship is, even though John is the toilet guy. They talk about how they want to split everything down the middle 50-50. And Andy honors that to honor his friend.
And I think this is kind of where the movie gets into a legal gray area, because now they have these Porta Johns are popping up all over, and they say another Andy Gump Porta John, which is exactly what the real Andy Gump Porta Johns look like.
Yeah, it does seem to be definitely getting a little more historically fast and loose at this point.
Oh, we forgot to mention, though, before he got the money to start this Porta John business, he was having trouble transitioning back into civilian life. He ended up in New Orleans. He got a non-custodial job, which, he's he's miserable at. What was his job?
He got that job as a levee maintenance man in New Orleans.
That's right.
But he's still caught up on losing his friend John and trying to fulfill John's dream of the toilet business. So I guess it's safe to say his mind's not fully in his work.
Right.
At this
He
point.
ended up destroying the levees rather than repairing them. And so he got let go from that job. And about a week later, Hurricane Katrina hit. Then we got voiceover Chad Michael Murray saying, "And that nice young president I met all those years ago in Florida got in trouble for not caring about black people." And then you got the stock footage of Kanye and Mike Myers.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting choice to leave the Kanye stuff there. They never really follow up on anything else with Kanye.
That's the only Kanye we see.
Yeah, but I think it's smart because, think about Oliver Stone's W film.
Mm-hmm.
It was made while Bush was still in office, and you can't properly frame historical events that are still unfolding. So I thought it was, an interesting directorial choice to leave out the rest of the
Yeah,
Kanye
we
stuff
need
there.
the climax to Kanye's story before we can really address him in a film.
Of course, yeah. So that was a respectful choice from the director.
So after Hurricane Katrina, he starts his Porta-John business, like we mentioned.
It's a bit of a struggle at first. He doesn't get a foothold immediately.
Right, but it doesn't take long before business really picks up.
Yeah, he gets very lucky and ends up getting a contract to provide Porta-Johns for hundreds of new construction sites for housing developments and new houses being built all across the country.
So he ends up a millionaire, and true to his word, he was going to split everything right down the middle with his friend John. And he shows up at John's family's house with the big novelty check. I don't know why he needed a novelty check, but a giant novelty check. And his mom comes out and she's in mourning or whatever, and she sees him and reads the check, and she it's a bit of slapstick. She falls over backwards, her feet fall up. She fainted from seeing all that money or whatever. But it's a heartwarming moment that's he's true to his friend even after he passed.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to his obsession with TV thing, because the giant check is probably an inspiration he got from seeing the Publishers Clearinghouse checks on TV.
Right, Ed McMahon, I believe.
I think in his mind, the only way to give someone a large amount of money is to do so with a large check.
Right, proportionally sized to the amount of money.
But yeah, even after he gives John's mother all that money, he's still extremely wealthy. Mm-hmm. And then we flash back to the present where he's in line for the bathroom and he tells that middle-aged lady, "A lot of people sure were sad about losing their houses, but I made a lot of money." And then, of course, after the housing crisis, we get the election of Barack Obama, which the movie sort of kind of just slides right by. They don't really address it much.
You do see him saying at one point, "I introduced my one friend, John, to my other best friend, Sarah." It's kind of CG versions of John McCain and Sarah Palin. And it's okay, so this is how Sarah Palin ended up on the ticket. Is she was friends with Andy Gump.
Yeah, they're kindred spirits in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Colossal dipshits. Is that kind of what you mean?
Colossal stinkers, if we're going to use John's terminology. Yeah, and you think that's going to be the last time that Andy really pops up during the Obama presidency, but then there is one more scene where he's talking about how he got this big order for Porta-Johns from the Pentagon, mm-hmm. because they've called in everyone to work and their regular bathrooms are all overflowing.
Right, but it's that they didn't pay him ahead of time, and he needs to get the check or something like that. And so he says, "I'm gonna go see the boss man," and he's wandering around the White House, and he gets into the Situation Room.
Yeah, and he's trying to get Obama's attention because he's upset that they're stiffing him on the check for all the Porta-Johns. But everyone in the room is super busy and focused.
Yeah, and so then it's cuts to present day, and he shows the woman beside him. He has the photograph, and it's the one we've all seen where Obama's in the cool jacket and all the generals are there, and Clinton's covering her mouth and everything. In the background, you do see Andy Gump, and he's trying to get Obama's attention, and it's oh yeah, he was there too.
So then he was part of compromising Osama bin Laden to a permanent end, as Obama famously put it.
he has a contract at a Cincinnati zoo one day, and he notices a kid is like, I can't see the gorilla, and Andy's like, oh, I'll help you see the gorilla, and like picks him up over the fence and accidentally drops him in. He goes, oops, and then the gorilla comes over, and unfortunately they had to compromise the gorilla to a permanent end.
Yeah, Andy's really all over the place.
Well, it's like a nationwide business, I think we're led to believe at this point.
Yeah, at this point we're in the the mid to late 2010s, and business is booming. He's a huge success, and everyone, the name Porta John is on everyone's lips.
So then after that poor gorilla gets killed, he's sad, and but he wanders by like an Apple store or something, and he's like, oh, what's this? Like, he's never seen a fucking computer before, and they show him how to use it. They show him what the internet is. He gets addicted. Pretty soon he's going on like message boards and just typing absolute gibberish, just nonsense.
Yeah, stream of consciousness stuff.
But before long, this whole like community of people is like hanging on his every word and analyzing his posts as if there were hidden messages, kind of predicting future events. He has this whole following.
At first, he's excited because he finds this community of like-minded people.
Community.
But then it sort of goes beyond his capacity to understand exactly how invested folks get into what he's posting. So he does inadvertently become a leader, in a sense, of
an
a
anonymous leader.
I don't think he wants people to know he's the toilet guy, because he wants to be respected and liked on his own merits rather than as a wealthy entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. I think next was the scene where he gets his first international contract for the Porta Johns. Remember when they hire him in Wuhan, China?
Yeah, there's that wet market in Wuhan that desperately needs more toilet capacity. Mm-hmm. And of course, they go for the best. They go for Porta John, the biggest name in the business. While he's there, he's so excited to get this big contract that he buys all of the Chinese businessmen he's dealing with like dinner, and he accidentally orders like bat meat because he refuses to use a translator and like orders it wrong in Chinese.
Yeah, right, but he's embarrassed about it, so he does eat the bat, and then he wants to show his respect to everyone he comes across, so he's open mouth kissing pretty much everyone in Wuhan, China.
Yeah, he's under the impression that it's like Europe where you kiss, but in Asia they do it directly on the lips.
Mm-hmm. A few times he's kind of coughing into people's faces.
So the deal goes really well. I mean, aside from him getting a little bit sick from eating all the bats.
Yeah, and a lot of his friends got sick, unfortunately.
But for him, financially, it's a great success. He's doing better than ever when he comes back to the U.S.
Mm-hmm. But then he's like, oh, but then a lot of people got sick and we had to stay home and there wasn't much call for Porta Johns. And so, that was his dark time, right?
Yeah, he hit his highest high and then his lowest low back to back.
Right, and then his old boss at the D.C. dry cleaner died from COVID. And then he flew back to D.C., and then it kind of comes full circle. It's like you realize he's waiting in line for the Porta John at this guy's funeral. And then he sees, big ruckus. There's a huge crowd going by, and Andy Gump says, oh, what was that? Is that a weird creature? He thought he saw a weird creature in the crowd. And he starts following. He's like, he looked like a man, but he got antlers. This kind of stuff. And so he thinks he's tracking some sort of weird creature. Follows him all the way to the Capitol building, up the steps. He's like, oh, and he has to step over the bodies of the Capitol Police and stuff. And he thinks he's tracking this weird creature. Unfortunately, Andy Gump is caught on camera, and even though he did nothing wrong, he was just following this guy, this weird antlers guy. Andy Gump ends the movie behind bars, and you're supposed to see, he was just a nice guy who just happened to be in the Capitol that day, and now he's in prison.
Yeah, they really try to emphasize that, sure, there were a couple bad apples in the crowd, but most of the people there were just there, as patriots or out of curiosity following antlered individuals.
Right, yeah. That's kind of how the movie wraps up, kind of on a somber note of our hero behind bars unjustly.
Yeah, it's so he's sitting in his cell and commiserating with his cellmate who was also arrested at January 6th.
He not at the Capitol. He was just drunk driving, right?
Right. They just roped in everyone who was around at that point. It was over policing, I think, is the commentary the movie is trying to impose there.
And who was that actor?
That was Haley Joel Osment.
That's right.
Was the cellmate?
Yeah, you don't see him enough anymore. And he, like, I was trying to play. He was in a movie that Andy Gump kind of reminded me of, but it's on the tip of my tongue. I just can't remember the title.
Yeah, it was one of his first movies as a child actor. The Sixth Sense, maybe, or I think it was before that.
It doesn't matter. So yeah, that was Andy Gump. You might be wondering why people didn't see this when it came out. It never came out. The real Andy Gump, the real Porta-John rental service, threatened litigation because the movie was libelous, portraying their founder as a big dipshit and everything. And so the movie production kind of backed down and didn't release the movie. But the good folks at the Forgotten Video Store, they sneaked a copy.
Yeah, and thank you for showing this to me because, in Milwaukee, we don't get the same kind of videos that you guys get in LA.
Yeah.
So this was really special.
Yeah,
for
we
me.
have, we got the productions here. And so, like, whenever anyone's looking to make a quick buck, that anyone like a PA or something, we'll just, I've done it. We've all done it. You just steal a copy of the movie and leak it for a quick paycheck.
They're making a quick paycheck off of it, but it's in the service of art, and we can't be mad about that.
What do we think of the movie? It was pretty good. I liked it. It was weird because when I watch like historical movies, I'm like, oh, this is history. This didn't feel like history to me. This was like all the events covered or like, so they feel like they just happened. It's like we lived through them. There's not that distance, that historical distance that you see in most movies. It all felt very fresh.
Yeah, I think this is something that is not appreciated in its time because it is so fresh for us. But I think future generations will really appreciate this film as sort of a capsule of what life was like in the 90s and 2000s and 2010s. Considering how America has changed in that time, this is going to be a really important historical reference for folks. People will learn a lot from this movie. I certainly did, and I liked it more than I thought I would. I think it's also a really important reminder that, we should all be a little more open-minded about things. The custodian in your office, the levee maintenance man down the street, these are people who are, they're an important part of the community, and they might have an influence on the world that we don't see just from looking at them.
That's a beautiful sentiment to leave this movie with. Andy Gump, what a fun ride. All right, to end things up, I like to do something that's called plugs and rants. So it's like anything you want to promote, I'll give you the opportunity, and anything you want to rant about, get off your chest, just really anything you want to talk about. That's fine. I'll go first. I don't know that I have anything to promote this time, but my rant is something that bugs me that you get in emails sometimes. It's like, this is a polite reminder that blah, 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 blah. Or this is a friendly reminder that blah, blah, blah. You don't just get to call yourself polite and that doesn't automatically make it true. You could do a polite reminder like, hey, I just want to make sure you know that this event is coming up, thus and such, or that this payment is due. There are polite ways to say it. I think saying polite reminder that your payment is due is not polite. I think calling yourself polite is not polite.
Okay, yeah, I'd agree with that. It feels a little passive-aggressive, actually. It's like how when people say, with all due respect,
and then
the
something
thing that follows that is usually very disrespectful.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have anything to promote or anything to rant about?
Yeah, I think promotionally, I'll just refer people to, if you'd be kind enough to support me on Instagram, my handle is my name, Jihan Batuman. Jihan Batuman. Also, you can just read my name on the description here, and it'll be easier to spell that way. And if you're ever in Milwaukee, hit me up. Come to a comedy show.
Awesome.
And as for rants, I got to tell you, I love movies. I go to the cinema. I support the films. And the one thing that really bugs me is when I go to AMC theaters.
Okay. And
I'm saying this as a proud AMC Stubs member. The napkins at AMC theaters are too loud. They're very crinkly. They're too loud. I'd like a nice soft napkin when I'm wiping my hands after I eat my popcorn. I just want to wipe my hands and not have an auditory distraction.
Yeah.
The napkins that they provide at AMC are so crinkly and loud. It feels like I'm opening a bag of chips or something every time I try to wipe my hands.
Yeah, that is a disaster. Yeah. You get, while it's probably the cheapest, the cost-cutting measure, theaters aren't doing as well as they used to, but yeah, if you want to respect the experience, yeah, give us some quiet napkins.
Right, and take a page from Andy Gump. If you're going to do your job, do it as best as you can. So that includes the people stocking napkins for AMC.
I worked at a theater where they decided that they were spending too much money on napkins. The guests were taking too many napkins with their popcorn. So we had the napkins behind the counter.
Oh, wow.
And you weren't meant to give any to the guests unless they specifically asked for them.
Okay.
Bizarre, right?
Yeah, that feels like an overcorrection. But...
That theater is now closed.
Oh, what a shocker.
Anyway, yeah, so that's pretty much it. Jihan, thank you so much for joining me. I had a really fun time. I really appreciate you taking the time. And everything.
Yeah, David, thanks for having me on. This was a blast.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Forgotten Video Store. Please share this podcast with 5 friends. In fact, now that you've listened to the episode, you must share the show with 5 friends. If you don't share the show with 5 friends, you'll have bad luck and your crush will never talk to you again. And yes, those 5 friends also have to share this podcast with 5 friends. I'll be back in a week to discuss an early screen life movie. You know those movies where the whole thing takes place on a computer screen, deals with internet interactions? Ice Cube just did one with War of the Worlds to great success. But the one we're discussing next week is slightly hamstrung by taking place in the 1990s internet. Intro and outro music is Funky Energy Loop by Kevin MacLeod, Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0. Okay, bye!